lines. Fault lines.
Welcome back to Fault Lines. My name is Jamel Thomas. I am here alone today. Shane Stranahan is not necessarily feeling all that well, so I am taking reins of the ship alone. We're joined by Caleb Maupin, speaker, writer, journalist, political analyst, and author of City Builders and Vandals in Our Age, articles and essays on socialism. Caleb, welcome to the show, man. How you doing today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing so far so good. I'm live, kicking, making it, energized, on point and focused today since I'm doing it on my own. So I really do appreciate you coming on. You have a new book out, Kamala Harris and the Future of America, an essay in 3 parts. So explain to the audience what that book is about. And I think, look, it's timely, right? Kamala Harris is the vice president. And let's be very honest, it's very possible Joe Biden is not going to make it the 4 years. We know what the presidency does. That's not me being cruel. That's me being just honest. Look at Obama in the beginning and look at Obama after. Trump has been weird and bucked the trend on that, but he's gotten more portly. But from the standpoint of Biden, when I saw Biden pick Kamala Harris, I knew that Kamala Harris seemed to be the pick that the party wanted anyway. And by attaching her to Joe Biden, and what's his name said, yeah, blacks should be happy because they got Kamala Harris. How insulting in general. But in real terms, Kamala Harris may, in the first term, end up being president. And so an analysis and a talk about her is just as important as any conversation about Joe Biden. And I think that's the thing that we miss. Joe Biden may be able to make it to the White House, but the person who may be in that White House may be somebody who's not get the scrutiny that they deserve considering the condition of Biden. What do you think about that? Am I being too harsh in my appraisal? Or do you think, there's something to that? It's most likely true that Kamala Harris could potentially end up in the White House.
Oh, I'd say there's a very, very good chance that she could be president. Even if she doesn't win along with Biden in November, there's a very good chance she could be president at some future date. She's someone that the political elites of the United States have really put a lot of time and money behind. And let's recall that her presidential campaign was going pretty well. She was considered one of the front runners until Tulsi Gabbard took a moment on national TV, a moment of her limited time. Tulsi Gabbard never had really the amount of time that other candidates got. Tulsi Gabbard used her limited time to particularly go after Kamala Harris and expose her record as a prosecutor and expose, the fact that she had prosecuted people for smoking marijuana and then laughed about it when asked if she'd ever done it herself. The fact that she had tried to keep an innocent man on death row. Those are Tulsi Gabbard's words. After the American people saw Tulsi Gabbard's, kind of takedown of Kamala Harris, she dropped in the polls. That was it. At the time, the media didn't really want to acknowledge it, but this was probably one of the biggest, political takedowns we've ever seen on national television.
It was phenomenal. I mean, Kamala Harris was in the number, 3, 4 spot at one point? I mean, she literally popped up in the polls after she went after Joe Biden. How was that little girl, Joe Biden? It was that scene. And then you find out a few days later, well, she also has the same position as Joe Biden. Political theater. She even got Joe Biden to argue states' rights. And Joe Biden had no clue what he was talking about. If you're arguing states' rights, a state right to do what? That's been the way we're talking about it. And typically when we talk about segregation and you have that type of stuff and these governors that were fighting for their schools, states' rights, the state's right to do what? States' rights to basically keep things the way they are. And for Joe Biden to be arguing that in a conversation about busing and civil rights and segregation, oh, that's horrendous. And yet, there he was doing it. But like you said, the very next debate, Kamala Harris gets taken apart in 60 seconds by Tulsi Gabbard. And Tulsi Gabbard basically goes down the list. Like you said, I mean, you've kept people in prison on death row despite the judge won. I mean, people groaned audibly when she said that. I mean, the laughing at pot smokers. I mean, you're at a Democratic primary. They're not going to be for that. Even the firefighting stuff where you're getting people to fight fires for pennies. It's astonishing, right? And so I do agree with you that it is very important for an analysis of Kamala. What made you write this book? What was the thing that got you to say, you know what, I'm going to write this book?
Well, the more you look into Kamala Harris's life story, the more confusing and disturbing it is, right? Her record as a prosecutor in California, as California's state attorney general, involved, some pretty horrendous stuff. Records of withholding evidence to try and get people convicted. The Attorney General's office of California was constantly being criticized by the courts for its actions, basically, trying to lock up as many people as possible. Her career as a prosecutor, she rose into prominence during the 1990s when California's rate of incarceration was skyrocketing and just rising and rising and rising. Now, that might all make sense, right, if she came out of what you might call the thin blue line milieu, right? There's a lot of people in the United States that are, part of the, related to police officers themselves. You have the Fraternal Order of Police. And those folks have a specific worldview. They think we're too soft on criminals. They think our justice system is rigged. We have too many civil liberties. And that milieu, her behavior might make sense in that context. However, if you look at Kamala Harris's background, both of her parents met, and they met at civil rights marches. She grew up on the organized left. I mean, she talks about in her memoir, Truths We Hold, how she spent much of her childhood at a place called Rainbow Sign, that was a cultural center, of the African American community in Oakland, California, and that she came out of the organized left. She knew all about the history of racism. She knew all about the prison industrial complex, but yet she still chose the career path that she chose. And that was quite disturbing to me when I read about it. So I decided I should start doing some investigation. And I basically, this is not a biography of Kamala Harris. This is not. This is me using Kamala Harris to make some points, and understanding the history of leftism in the United States, understanding the psychological motivations behind politics, and also understanding the different factions competing within the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris was selected by the Hillary Clinton State Department faction. Hillary Clinton, she ran the U.S. State Department during Obama's first term, and the world is still reeling from the aftermath of what Hillary Clinton did when she ran the State Department. I mean, she oversaw a coup in Honduras. She oversaw the destabilization of Libya, the destabilization of...
the murder of Gaddafi. Yeah, the murder of Gaddafi, laughed at Gaddafi's murder.
Right. And furthermore, the Obama administration tried to restrain the Hillary Clinton State Department. Hillary Clinton worked explicitly with Silicon Valley to foment regime change. And early on, during the Hillary Clinton State Department years, early on, Jared Andrew Cohen, who worked with Hillary Clinton, he went to Twitter and asked them to, change some of their operations in order to help destabilize Iran and support protests there. And the Obama administration heard about this and actually tried to fire Jared Andrew Cohen, but Hillary Clinton protected him. And that the Hillary Clinton State Department, they came in with this regime change strategy, destabilizing the world, trying to foment unrest around the world, working with Silicon Valley and social media to do it. They came in with that strategy. And on many instances, you can see Obama and Joe Biden trying to restrain the Hillary Clinton State Department from doing that and fearing the disastrous consequences. Barack Obama says that...
but they mostly went along with it. Hillary Clinton may be a bit of a hawk in the Democratic Party, but she's normal, for all things being equal. Is it fair to say that if you're looking at Libya, Syria, like you said, Honduras, at that point, if you're talking about, adding more troops into some African countries, Obama had, 7 wars going or something insane like that? It didn't seem like they restrained her all that much. It seemed like these guys were on target.
When asked about his presidency, Obama said that his worst decision was going into Libya, something Hillary Clinton pushed him to do, going into Libya without a clear plan. Obama also said that his best decision was in 2013 when he was able to not attack the Syrian government with cruise missiles, when the entire U.S. political establishment was pushing Obama to unleash cruise missiles against Syria in 2013, when he managed to not do that and instead had the Syrian government turn over their chemical weapons and negotiated that deal. He said that was his best moment.
But that was only because the Russian government intervened to give another option to Obama. Obama would have pass that red line.
Oh, certainly. And if you look at it, Obama got rid of Hillary Clinton during his second term, and he brought in John Kerry. And what John Kerry focused on was doing the Iran deal, and doing relations with Cuba. And that, Obama, Biden, John Kerry, these are just kind of old school liberals. These are guys that, yes, they'll go along with this strategy. They'll go along with the regime changers, but they're just kind of old school liberals. They're just kind of managers. They just want to get things done. But there is a particular faction within the American elite in Silicon Valley and elsewhere that really had embedded itself in the U.S. State Department and the Hillary Clinton State Department, their policies, the way they were able to manipulate the events of the Arab Spring to serve U.S. foreign policy. They had very long-term consequences, and it was revealed. And it's just almost well known. I mean, no one really disputes this, that when it became clear that Hillary Clinton could not run in 2020 as much as she wanted to, that Hillary Clinton's financial backers, they had meetings in the Hamptons in Long Island, New York, and they picked Kamala Harris. And that all the major Clinton donors and backers, this particular faction, they put their money behind Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris represents the Hillary Clinton State Department.
That's exactly my point. Like the argument or the conversation, even though it's taking place from the standpoint of Joe Biden, you have to add Kamala Harris. Look, I know people don't want to be impolite. Fair enough. But the reality of it is Joe Biden is not the man. He is a wisp of himself just 4 years ago. And so it's an honest conversation to say it's likely he may not make it 4 years, or he may not even be up for it for 1 or 2 years, depending upon the stress of the presidency. And so you would think that Kamala Harris would get a lot more of a review than just, hey, they got a black woman into this particular process. It's like, it seems to be bizarre that they accept this argument that Joe Biden is somehow going to last, like as a flat fact, all 4 years. No, you should be investigating Kamala Harris. So I am absolutely happy that you're doing that. Let's do this. Let's take a break, and we'll be back in a moment. You guys are listening to Caleb Maupin, speaker, writer, journalist, political analyst, and author of City Builders and Vandals in Our Age, articles and essays on socialism. We're talking about Kamala Harris. He has a new book out, Kamala Harris and the Future of America, an essay in 3 parts. You guys are listening to Fault Lines with Thomas and Strandy.
Fault Lines. Fault Lines.
Welcome back to Fault Lines. My name is Jamel Thomas. I am here with Caleb Maupin. I do want to put out a little bit of news that has just come out, so I want to thank my producer, Raheem. New York Times is reporting that the Vice President, Mike Pence, has tested negative for COVID. Markets rattled by Trump positive tests. Now, Caleb, the wild part about this is that we don't know what happens now. If Trump gets ill, like seriously ill, Mike Pence will most likely take it. If Trump dies, I mean, we are talking about a 70-some portly, not necessarily in the best of shape man, elderly. If he dies, Mike Pence will most likely take over. And if Mike Pence gets to run in the race against Joe Biden, what happens? And I don't entirely have an answer for that. So I'm going to give that to you. What happens under that scenario with Mike Pence as opposed to Donald Trump taking over the reins? Does it affect the race? Does it change the race? Or is Mike Pence a fundamentally different energy than Trump?
I would say that certainly changes the race. I mean, if Trump is out and it becomes Pence versus the Democrats, there's no question that Biden and Kamala Harris will win if it becomes a Pence race, in my prediction. Mike Pence just doesn't have the wild card, charisma that Trump has. Mike Pence is seen as just kind of a regular figure from the establishment. He's a religious right Republican. He was a conservative talk show host in Indiana, and then he became governor, and then he became president. And he's just a deeply conservative guy, and that's where what he's about. And Trump has got the image of kind of a wild card who is fighting the establishment and has his own style, et cetera. And Pence just doesn't doesn't evoke that energy.
No, I agree with you. I think it's a fundamental shift, like in the way things pursue themselves. I want to go back to Kamala Harris for the moment. What did you said it was somewhat disturbing at times. What changed her from a lefty? Because like you said, at some point she was part of the left in regards to her ideology and framing of the world and the things she would say. What made that shift? I know how Obama, when people were telling about him, Obama was very driven. And he took a very specific perspective in what he needed to do to be president, even getting rid of his white girlfriend, with the idea that I won't be accepted as such. What did Kamala Harris, what changed her in her purview in regards to her purview of the world?
Well, I can't directly answer that. I can't get inside her mind. I don't know when her views, completely shifted. And now she's trying to present herself as a leftist now. I mean, she's rewriting history and trying to say, she's all about Black Lives Matter. She became a prosecutor just so she could fight for Black lives, et cetera, which is just, if you look at her legacy and her record, that's ridiculous. I think one of the key things I get into in the book is her father, Donald Harris. Now, she talks at length about her mother, Shamala Gopalan. She talks about her mother a lot. Her mother is from India, was a cancer researcher, kind of a feminist pioneer. She eulogizes her mother. She's almost made her among Kamala Harris's supporters. Kamala's deceased mother is kind of a saint. But her father, who is still living, Donald Harris, very little is said about him. And if you look into the details, Kamala and her father are pretty much estranged from each other. They don't speak to each other. There was a divorce that took place when she was a child. Her father, Donald Harris, is an economics professor. He taught at Stanford University, and he drew heavily from Marx. To call him a communist is a huge exaggeration. But he's a Marxian economist, and he was an advisor to various prime ministers of Jamaica. And when she made a joke on the Breakfast Club radio program about smoking weed, they asked her if she'd ever smoked weed, and she said, "Half my family's from Jamaica. What do you think?" Her father was so infuriated that he spoke up and denounced her campaign and called it a travesty of identity politics and disassociated his entire family from it. Her entire Jamaican family has denounced her and is opposing her campaign. And never have we heard the relatives of anyone running for president speak so vehemently against them. This is crazy. You look into the statements made by Donald Harris, and then you read his essay he wrote, Reflections of a Jamaican Father. And you see a side of Kamala Harris's upbringing that she would very much like to conceal. In her book, The Truths We Hold, she says the only thing that her parents fought over during the divorce was the books. However, if you read Donald Harris's essay, there was a custody battle in the courts of Oakland, California. And Donald Harris very much feels that because he was an African-American man or a Caribbean-American man, that the courts very much were biased against him, even though he was an academic, and that he lost custody of his daughters unfairly. There's a lot there to look into, and that is a particular point of interest in the book. But it seems that the relationship between Kamala and her father and the real resentment and tension between the two of them, may have driven Kamala, to be the kind of vindictive, sadistic prosecutor she became. And I think there are many things that would point to such facts if you read like little hints she's left for us in her autobiography and elsewhere.
The identity politics. I agree with her dad. Like for Clyburn to basically say that African Americans who are complaining that the Democrats are taking advantage of them or taking them for granted or exploiting them. And Clyburn basically argues, hey, you got Kamala Harris. Shut up about all that taking advantage stuff. As if somehow her blackness or whatever her heritage is somehow indicative of material gains that the population receives. Meaning Obama's blackness didn't stop him from getting 95% of the income gains to the top 1% or throwing his body in front of Wall Street. These were issues of class, not issues of identity. And oftentimes the Democratic Party has been able to use issues of identity in lieu of economics. back in the old days, they didn't necessarily separate this notion of race and economics. At least King didn't when he was giving his speeches. And the Democratic Party is basically and fundamentally broken black politics and any notion of power in those politics. I mean, imagine for the moment, you have a constituency that votes 90%, and yet is powerless in that vote. Like, it's astonishing. And that's not just African Americans. There's also lefties and many Hispanics. I mean, the majority of the people who are voting for Biden are doing so not because of who Biden is or any kind of affirmative message. They're doing it to get rid of Trump. They're terrified. Let me ask you this. What is the socialist analysis of this? Like, you have America, your book, City Builders and Vandals, Our Age, Essays on Socialism. What is an appraisal of our society and the way this society has devolved, where you end up, despite all of these emergencies, larger than what the Great Depression was, and yet two men who are radically incapable of dealing with it?
Well, I make this point once again in the new book, Kamala Harris and the Future of America. I make the same point that I make in my City Builders and Vandals book, which is that socialism is a constructive ideology. It's about society coming together, organizing the economy for public good, planning out, goods and services, the means of production being controlled by society. It is a collectivist ideology, and it is about building and constructing and getting to a better world. But there have been covert efforts to manipulate left-wing politics, to make left-wing politics about people releasing their impulses, right? And about people, giving people permission to unleash their rage and their desire for revenge, desire for, sexual freedom, et cetera, and that there has been kind of a distortion and a hijacking of the politics of the revolutionary intelligentsia. And that, when you see this clip of Kamala Harris, very famous clip of her speaking at the Commonwealth Club of California, and she laughs about the fact that she jailed the parents of children who were truant from school.
Utterly disgusting. Utterly disgusting. I wish we had that clip so people can get a real sense of it. Basically, just a snapshot of it. Kamala Harris was being asked about, I think they were success stories. And she's giggling, laughing her way through, threatening and terrifying a mother who's homeless and have kids that can't go to school, and threatening that mother with jail. Now, the fact that she's laughing through this story is problematic in and of itself. And even the notion that this mom's issue was the kids not going to school as opposed to her being homeless. I mean, that clip was astonishing. Honestly, it is.
It was very astonishing if you watch the clip. And, before she gets into her tirade about why she did it, she says, I would be nowhere if it weren't for the fact that I got an education. Well, as a prosecutor, it's not supposed to be about you, Kamala. It's not supposed to be about your feelings, right? And she talks about how she had a quote unquote big stick with which she could use as a prosecutor. And there is this kind of she sees this as kind of the fulfillment of releasing her rage, right? This is her revenge for whatever pain exists in her childhood. And there's something psychological going on there. And in the book, I fit that in with kind of the way leftist politics has been distorted, that when it becomes just about giving people permission to unleash their rage, it becomes about, lifting restraints on impulses. This is kind of what's going on. At the end of the day, the children whose parents went to jail because they went to school, they didn't benefit from that. They didn't have a better life. Yes, kids need to be in school, but if you lock their parents up, that doesn't improve their life. But it's not about actually helping those kids. It's about taking revenge against those parents. And, you take a look at Libya. The people of Libya did not benefit from the U.S. intervention in 2011 that toppled the most prosperous government on the African continent. The people of Syria haven't benefited from this. But again, it's not really about helping the people of Syria or helping the people of Libya. It's about destroying. It's about taking revenge against someone you perceive as an oppressor. And that this kind of distortion of left-wing politics, where left-wing politics becomes about tearing things down and not building, is the problem. And that's what I explore in my essay in 3 parts, Kamala Harris and the Future of America, which is widely available. And many people say that I make a lot of points they weren't expecting. I go a lot of places they didn't think I would go. I talk about all kinds of things, and it really changed how they viewed not just Kamala Harris, but left-wing and socialist politics in general. So I hope people will check it out. I'm glad I put it out the short booklet, short essay in 3 parts. You can get it; it's available.
No, that's awesome, Caleb. I really do appreciate this. And that book is Kamala Harris and Future of America, an essay in 3 parts. And of course, the other book is City Builders and Vandals, in our age, articles and essays on socialism. Definitely go and check out those books and those videos. Those books. You know, my producer, he said he can listen to you for hours. He said Caleb can talk for 3 hours straight, and everything he says is on point, and I can sit there and listen to him the whole time. So I wanted to give you the accolades, you know, from some of our people that work here. And honestly, man, I really do appreciate this. The one question, maybe 30 seconds. Why do you believe that, for her standpoint and the way that she operates, this is about childhood trauma? It sounds like that's the argument that you're making, that a lot of the things that she's doing is about trauma. It's not necessarily about the benefit. I mean, for example, is it a better argument, or is it also fair to say that this is about political, raw political instincts or raw political ambition, where everything else is subordinate to that political ambition and her getting into some kind of political spot? I mean, is that sufficient, or that doesn't necessarily fit?
30 seconds is really not enough time to answer that. But let me just tell you that in the book, I point out that a number of people in the Hillary Clinton State Department have very, very, very similar biographies to her, and have had very, very similar experiences, and have displayed the same kind of tendencies. And that the studying of personalities and the profiling of personalities, this is something we need to understand, you know. And I compare our 4 most recent U.S. presidents and, you know, their personality traits and all of that. And I think that Kamala Harris developed as she did because, you know, she was selected based on certain personality traits. So that's all I can say.
I want to really thank you for coming on. You're right. 30 seconds wasn't enough time for that. I apologize. We kind of hit it at the last moment. But this is Caleb Maupin, speaker, writer, journalist, political analyst, and author of City Builders and Vandals in Our Age, articles and essays on socialism. And again, check out his new book, Kamala Harris and the Future of America, an essay in 3 parts. You guys are listening to Fault Lines with Thomas Strang. We will be back. I will be back in a moment.
Fault Lines.